Have scene one. So yeah, pretty much the last act is where everything gets resolved. On your blue books, it's 109. Okay, so just the first line of Prospero. Now does my project gather to a head, my charms crack not, my spirits obey, and time goes upright with his carriage. Basically, just highlight it and say everything's going according to plan. Okay, so just it's not particularly important, but it depends on just the line of argument that you're looking at. Okay, Ariel says that they're all confined together. He describes using imagery their predicament, really. So, but what's important is the good old Lord Gonzalo. His tears run down his beard like winter's drops from eaves of reeds. Your charm so strongly works them that if you now beheld them, your affections would become tender. So there's strong imagery there that shows the power of Prospero's charms. And it evokes repentance and regret. So, so Gonzalo is crying, and so are the other castaways, and it shows that Prospero's charms have had that effect on them. They've been really strong, and it also highlights the ramifications of the discovery. And Prospero says, "Dost thou think so, Spirit?" And Ariel says, "Mine would, sir, were I human." So the fact that Ariel's a spirit and says that, I would feel sorry for them if I saw them like you would. It just reinforces the extent of the castaways' penitence and evokes strong feelings in the audience. So just paraphrase what I've said. And Prospero says, "And mine shall." But then he's kind of like gets a little bit annoyed that Ariel has said that and said, "Do you think that I wouldn't? You're made of air. Do you think that I wouldn't feel that?" And anyway, so that's not super important. Though with their high wrongs I am struck to the quick, yet my nobler reason against my fury do I take part. The rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance. They being penitent, the sole drift of my purpose doth extend not a frown further. Go, release them, Ariel. My charms I'll break, their senses I'll restore, and they shall be themselves. So Prospero comes to a discovery that he's better to forgive than seek vengeance. Okay, that's his virtue. That's the whole virtue rather than vengeance line. And so initially, even though he doesn't harm them with the Tempest, he has these feelings of rage. The Tempest is a pathetic fallacy, a symbol of his the anger that has not left him after 12 years of how he's sort of been wronged, and now the discovery that he makes after seeing them responding to his charms and that kind of thing has made him have a different perspective on their actions and his situation. He himself is released with forgiveness as well. So he says, "Go release them, Ariel, my charms I'll break." That is also a way of him being released, in a way, released from the anger that he's held on to. Because for 12 years, he's obviously held on to it because he's still angry. Okay, and that's 12 years of anger, and hatred is a really corrosive sort of emotion that doesn't really bode well for the person who feels it. I don't know who it was. I think it was like Oscar Wilde or someone says that hatred is a poison that corrodes the vessel that it's stored in more than what it's poured on. I don't know if that was a really bad quote, but basically, yeah. Okay, so it's been eating away at him, hasn't been eating away at them because they haven't been thinking about it. But when he reminds them, that's when they sort of get upset. Okay, Prospero just goes on a soliloquy about elves of hills and everything. I've just said in this section here, supernatural nature imagery shows connection to nature and higher powers. That's part of his art. Okay, but this is really important. It's about 3/4 of the way down. But this rough magic, I here abjure, and when I've required some heavenly music, which even now I do to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff, bury it certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than ever did plummet sound, I'll drown my book. So what I did when I was doing the Tempest at school, and what you'll have to do in a lot of these lines, is that you'll have to select phrases from a few sentences and put it together. separated by ellipses. So, for example, I would have put, with this rough magic I here abjure, ... I'll break my staff, maybe even ... I'll drown my book. I might not even put all the detail in there, depending on how long the quote would go for. You could probably have it, you could probably say bury at certain fathoms and deeper than ever did plummet sound. That's probably okay to put in there, but you don't want it to be, you couldn't use that whole thing from but to book. That's too long. Okay, that's like 3 lines worth of a quote, which is too long to have in an essay. So I said it's like a cathartic moment. Okay, he's come to a massive realization that he no longer needs his magic. It served its purpose. So it's an inner discovery. It's his journey of discovery that he's gone on. That's lasted 12 years, really, even though it's only lasted a few hours with the magic and the castaways. It has been in the pipeline for 12 years. Okay, going down. So there's a big stage direction there. You can highlight it, or maybe just do a bracket around it, or circle it or something, because, like I said, the stage directions are important to make note of. Holy Gonzalo, so this is about the 5th line after the stage direction. Holy Gonzalo, honourable man, mine eyes, and even sociable to the show of thine, fall fellowly drops. So Prospero's crying to see Gonzalo again. It shows their close relationship. As the morning steals upon the night, melting in the darkness, so their rising senses begin to chase the ignorant fumes that mantle their clearer reason. So the spell is lifted and they can discover the truth. They can discover what was concealed. Okay, it's been concealed by magic. So that is what's rediscovered or discovered for the first time, but it's concealed. Okay, a few lines down. Thou art pinched for now, Sebastian, flesh and blood, you brother mine, that entertained ambition, expelled remorse and nature, who with Sebastian, whose inward pinches therefore are most strong, would have killed your king. I do forgive thee. So just that, do a bracket around that or highlight it all. Again, you would not use that whole chunk of quote. Okay, you have to select a section of it or break it up with ellipses so that it makes sense though. Okay, so it can be broken up, but it's got to be sort of cohesive, if that makes sense. So that's his most significant act of forgiveness, and that shows that he's come to new worlds and values, because he wouldn't have forgiven his brother before. His own flesh and blood got rid of his dukedom, tried to kill him, and set him and his daughter off on this horrible, life-threatening journey that could have gone really badly. So there's a lot of hatred there. On to page 111. Their understanding begins to swell, and the approaching tide will shortly fill the reasonable shore that now lies foul and muddy. Again, just discovery of what was concealed. Okay, so it's just that the spell is lifting. They're discovering the truth about their situation and the bigger picture. Ariel's in there. He says that he'll miss Ariel. He speaks quite nicely about him. And Ariel's still working for him, working for Prospero. All right, Prospero, 2/3 of the way down. Behold, Sir King, the wrong Duke of Milan, Prospero. So it's just a discovery. He reveals himself formally to the castaways. And he welcomes them as well, which is, again, a nice change from him putting them in a tempest. Yeah, and they thought he was dead or he was gone or whatever it is. So Alonso says, then whether thou beest he or no, or some enchanted trifle to abuse me, as late I have been. So basically Alonso questions, is this the real Prospero? Is it a vision? Is it a ghost? What is it? Okay? And that highlights the impact of Prospero's charms on the island and all the castaways. Okay, because they don't know, they question every discovery that they make because they don't know if it's real or not. Could be an illusion. Okay, near the bottom of 111, it's Alonso's third and second last lines. Thy dukedom I resign and do entreat thou pardon me my wrongs. But how should Prospero be living and be here? So it's a realization and a repentance. Okay, Alonso comes to realization. He's kind of in new worlds and values, and he's got renewed perceptions of himself and the world around him now. And that happens for the castaways as well when the spell is lifted from them. Okay, all right, we're going really well. 112, Prospero, it's his first line. Yet do yet taste some subtleties of the isle that will not let you believe things certain. Okay, highlights the illusory and deceptive nature of the island. And then he says, welcome my friends all. So we see that he's got a friendly relationship with them now. He's forgiven them. But then he says, but you, my brace of lords, were I so minded, he could pluck his highness's frown upon you and justify traitors. At this time I will tell no tales. So Prospero has learnt that virtue is stronger. He will not betray them as they betrayed him for now. So that could come out later, but he says, at this time, I'll tell no tales. So he's not going to ruin the moment by focusing on the negative aspects. Okay, and then Prospero's next line. For you, most wicked sir, whom to call brother would even infect my mouth, I do forgive thy rankest fault, all of them. So yeah, forgiveness, huge. It's a huge moment for Prospero. Not many people would necessarily forgive their brother for those kind of things, and it would have been a difficult thing for him to do, and maybe something that he couldn't have done had this not occurred. Okay, like we said, 12 years, that's a long time for someone to get over it, and he still wasn't over it. Hence the Tempest. And then he says, I need you to get rid of your dukedom, which is mine, and I'll have it back. And then Alonso wants to know how Prospero survived. Can't believe it. And then he also goes into how that causes him to think about how Ferdinand didn't survive. Prospero says that he also lost a child, but Prospero's, it's like a double entendre. So Prospero is talking about the loss to marriage, like he's lost his daughter to Ferdinand. But Alonso is speaking about Ferdinand's loss as death. Okay, and they're kind of on different paths, even though Prospero knows what he's talking about. And then that kind of prepares the discovery even more intensely. It's irony, oh heavens, that they were both living in Naples, the king and queen there. So irony, because they're going to be king and queen of Naples. 113. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's the 5th line till the 9th line. But howsoever you have been justled from your senses, know for certain that I am Prospero, and that very duke which was thrust forth of Milan. Just reinforces him as a real, not imagined aspect of the island. Causes the castaways to take him seriously and listen to him. And he says, pray you look in to his cell. At least bring forth a wonder to content ye as much as me my dukedom. Okay, that's the last line before the stage direction, and highlight the stage direction as well. Here Prospero discovers Ferdinand and Miranda playing at chess. So it's a discovery for Alonso to see Ferdinand alive again. That's a huge discovery for him, and he's very thankful for it all. And we realize, Alonso also discovers that they're in love. So he sees he sees Ferdinand playing chess. He questions the discovery though. He says, if this prove a vision of the island, one dear son shall I lose twice. Shall I twice lose, sorry. So that's Alonso's first line on this page. Yeah, it just questions his discovery. The island causes him to question the discoveries that he makes to see if they're real or not. He's very excited about everything, as everyone is. Miranda says, oh wonder, this is an important line. Oh wonder how many goodly creatures are there here, how beauteous mankind is. Oh brave new world that has such people in it. Highlight that line. So it's just Miranda's discovery of the outside world, and the new people and the new values and the new world that has opened up for her and that will open up when she comes to Milan or Naples or wherever she's going. Ferdinand says we're on 114 now. This is Ferdinand's first sort of line. It's the second line of his soliloquy. But by immortal providence, she's mine. So he thinks that it's fate, like destiny, but also kind of like accidental. But we know that Prospero orchestrated that. But we also see through their relationship that it is a genuine relationship, that they are genuinely meant to be together. They're not bewitched. They're not anything. They've fallen in love genuinely. And then at the end of his little thing, of whom I have received a second life and a second father, this lady makes him to me. So he's talking about Prospero. He's thankful for the discovery. It's caused him to see himself and the world differently now, Ferdinand. So that's important there. Alonso is like, yep, that's fantastic. We're a family. That sounds good. Prospero says, Alonso says, but oh, how oddly would it sound that I must ask my child for forgiveness, about the wrongs of what he's done to Prospero. And Prospero says, there, sir, stop. Let us not burden our remembrance with the heaviness that's gone. So he wants this moment to be a joyful moment. He doesn't want Alonso to bring up the past and tell Ferdinand all about the horrible things that he's done. He wants it to be a really positive time. And I think Prospero's virtue causes Alonso to leave the past behind at this time and potentially forever, okay, which is something that he's learned as well as a result of his own journey that he's gone on. Gonzalo says, go from his second line, look down, you God, and on this couple drop a blessed crown, for it is you that have chalked forth the way which brought us hither. Pardon me. Now the God could refer to God, Christian God, because remember the penitence, the forgiveness, the redemption, the reconciliation. These are all Catholic Christian virtues or aspects. Okay, and there's the Christian narrative really strongly in here about like the Christian values. But also we say that Prospero is like a god of the island because he controls the spirits and nature and all these kind of things. So that God has a second meaning because Prospero, God, orchestrated the discovery and what they did. But then, it can also refer to the higher power of the Christian God. Okay, so then Gonzalo, the couple's bond bring them all together, physically, emotionally, and politically. Okay, so they're all in the one place now. They're all emotionally together, and the political union of Milan and Naples. Gonzalo just talked about how there's been loss and then gain. So Prospero was thrust from Milan. Now he's going to be reinstated and his daughter's going to be married. Ferdinand found a wife when he himself was lost in a poor island. All of us ourselves where no man was his own. So everyone was lost in one way or another, or there was something negative happening to everybody. And then that has all worked out to become a positive thing, but it wasn't known at the time. So you could argue that discovery was questioned over time. Okay, I'm sure at the time, Prospero wasn't very excited about going off just with Miranda and being shipwrecked on some random island. I don't think he would have thought that was a really positive thing. But it was part of the tapestry of the present now. Okay, so this is pretty much, they wake up the boatswain and the sailors, 1:15 now. Not long to go. 1:15. So, which but 3 glasses since we gave our split is tight and near and bravely rigged as when we first put out to sea. Just questioned but rejoiced. Like they rejoice in the fact that everything's fine. But it reinforces the verisimilitude. Okay, a shipwreck that you believe is, the ship would have sunk or been really, really badly damaged, and to see it in perfect condition would be something that was quite confronting. Okay, the boatswain talked about their experiences. Just do a bracket around there because there's not really a particular line that's overly important. Just do a bracket around the boatswain's speech, And yeah, so basically the boatswain just tells the audience and the castaways what happened. Okay, they were like in a dream, and then they're awakened and brought here, whatever. So highlights the supernatural nature of their experience and the wonder of their discovery. Alright, Alonso's next line. This is as strange a maze as ever men trod, and there is in this business more than nature was ever conduct of. Some oracle must rectify our knowledge. So he questions the discovery. Prospero basically says next, don't ask questions, I'll tell you in good time, but for now just enjoy being here. I'll resolve you when to you shall seem probable of every of these happened accidents. Till when, be cheerful and think of each thing well. Okay, so think of it as in a positive way. Don't worry about what's happened and why it happened and how it happened. Just know that it all happened for a good reason and it's for the best now. Then Prospero asks Errol to get Trinculo, Stefano and Caliban. They're all going on like drunkards. Caliban says on page 116, his first line, "O Sidibos, these be brave spirits indeed. How fine my master is. I'm afraid he will chastise me." So the idea of the master becomes increasingly problematic and I guess even violent maybe. Then Sebastian and Antonio say, "What things are these, my lord Antonio? Will money buy them?" Antonio says, "Very like one of them is a plain fish and no doubt marketable." So it links back to colonialism, that opportunistic nature of Antonio and Sebastian, and have they really changed very much? They haven't changed. It doesn't seem like they've changed at all. They barely repent. Barely. They're kind of just, okay. They might change their actions in future. They might not plot to murder the king. But in terms of their personality, that is the same, unfortunately. Okay, so I've got a couple. This Prospero's line. This misshapen knave, his mother was a witch, and one so strong that could control a moon, make flows and ebbs, and deal in her command without her power. So it kind of speaks a little bit more positively about Caliban and Sycorax now that he's made his discovery. It's still not super positive, but he doesn't insult them the way that he was insulting them earlier. He was a very bitter, angry, sort of cranky man in Act 1 and 2. And sort of a little bit arrogant in a way, I think. But now he's become a lot more diplomatic. He still calls a spade, I suppose, but not in the nasty way that he was doing it before, which shows a change and a bit of a realization. He says, "This demi-devil, for he's a bastard one," in the next two lines. And then the last line, "This thing of darkness, I acknowledge mine." Doesn't have an I on this blue book, so just put an I instead of that exclamation mark. It must have been an error. This last little bit, Prospero knows that Caliban belongs to him, in inverted commas, and takes responsibility for him to a degree. Okay, because part of the reason why Caliban is the way he is does have something to do with the way that Prospero has taken advantage of him, and has treated him as a slave and a servant, and been sort of misunderstanding towards him, even though Caliban did try to rape Miranda, but sort of a complex relationship there. But it also links to the ownership of colonization. Caliban doesn't belong to Prospero, but Prospero believes that he does and treats him that way. Caliban says, "I shall be pinched to death," and he expects punishment, but he isn't actually punished by, which again shows the change, because when he didn't want to pick up wood, he was racked and pinched and all these kind of punishments, and now he isn't. Stefano and Trinculo have come to this realization that they're embarrassed of their actions and the drunkenness is lifted. Yeah, so Prospero says, "You'll be king of the Isle, Sirrah?" to Stefano, And he says, I should have been a sore one then. So Stefano comes to a realization of his folly. A bit of a duffer. They were punished earlier by Prospero. So 117, the last part of this. Okay, so Prospero says he is as disproportioned in his manners as he is in his shape. So he still disdains Caliban. He's not nice to him. He's not super nice, but he's not insulting the way that he was before. He's not using invective language. So just highlight that. Caliban, I will, and I'll be wise hereafter and seek for grace. This is another important line. Caliban has come to a realization of his folly in selection of master, but also in his actions on a broader level. What lessons has he learned? So he would have learned a few different types of lessons along the way. How to interact with the master, the choice of master, ideas about freedom, ideas about punishment, ideas about betrayal, those kind of things. So there would have been a lot of lessons that he's learnt, not just the one. And then Prospero says, get lost. And Prospero's sort of speech, longer speech, it's like a resolution. So the castaways will discover the truth and answers to their questions tonight in Prospero's cell. He'll tell them all about it. And the last two lines, thence retire me to my Milan, where every third thought shall be my grave. So he's older, he's coming to an end. Yeah, and that's how it links to Prospero, to Shakespeare's Farewell to the Stage. It's his last play. He's essentially retired after this play.
How old was he
when he wrote this? Yeah. Well, it was 1612, so I think he would be in his late 40s, I think. I think he was 54 when he died.
Isn't that pretty good considering?
That's, on the older side. That's like probably like 70 these days, I reckon. Yeah, so he's definitely a retiring age. So that was interesting there. If you want to read it like that. If you don't want to read it like that, then you don't have to. It's certainly not something that's factual in the sense that Shakespeare's projected himself into this play, being his last play, but it's certainly read that way quite regularly. And then, just do a little bracket. I'll deliver all and promise you calm seas, auspicious gales, and sails so expeditious that shall catch your royal fleet far off. Last power is used to give the castaways a successful journey.
I'm confused as to where this is.
That's Prospero's last line. So he says, I'll deliver all. Sorry. Next one after we... Yeah, next one. So just do a bracket. There's not there's not one line that's overly important. And aside to Ariel, my Ariel chick, that is thy charge. Then to the elements be free and fare thou well. Please you draw near. And then Ariel is released. A rediscovery of freedom for Ariel that hasn't been discovered for a long time.
What was the technique for the I'll deliver you all?
It's just his last power is used to give the castaways a successful journey. Yeah. Again, it's not really a technique. Okay, so rediscovery of freedom for Ariel.